Paul George is gone, and the Clippers are taking heat that they might not deserve. Klay Thompson spurns the Lakers. And on the first day of NHL free agency, the Kings' Rob Blake steps on a rake. Good morning. I'm James. This is your daily dose of sports and snark for the greatest sports city in the world, Los Angeles. This is the Faithful Angelenos Morning Report. And so it is July 2nd, 2024. Just woke up in the Midwest wondering what the hell I'm doing with my life. And that is what makes sports so important to us, guys, especially LA sports. And if you like being in the know about LA, click the like button, click the subscribe button. There's a notification bell. Hit that. It'll let you know when we drop new content. Sharing is caring. Let people know we exist. And by all means, comment. Now, before we go through the news and notes, a look at the scoreboard. There were no games involving LA teams yesterday. Meanwhile, today, Arizona is in town. They're going to be playing the Dodgers at 7. Bobby Miller, 1-1 with a 6.75 ERA, will be facing Ryan Nelson, 5-6 with a 5.69 ERA. Washington is going to be playing the Sparks at Crypto.com Arena at 7 o'clock. And what do you say we get a nice, good start on the news? When the Lakers didn't land UConn coach Dan Hurley, CBSSports.com's Sam Quinn claimed Jeannie Buss lowballed the guy with a contract that would have made him, at the time, a top 6 paid coach. And he would have elevated to one of the top 5 because one of those coaches that made more money got ran by the Pistons. And I bring this up because Quinn is at it again. He's now developing a pattern of accusing teams of lowballing people. He's claiming the Clippers lowballed Paul George. Now, even if you're not a Clippers fan, you know this is patently absurd. Everybody who follows the NBA now knows that there is a salary cap which shackles big money free spending owners, such as the Clippers' Steve Ballmer. Keeps them from spilling just a dump truck of cash all over George's doorstep. Everybody knows this, including Sam Quinn. We know this to be true because Quinn called the second apron of the salary cap, quote, terrifying, in his column blasting the Clippers for lowballing Paul George. And he's not the only scribe that took them to task for not doing whatever it took to keep Paul George. The Clippers are not lowballing Paul George. If anything, throughout his entire time with the Clippers, throughout Kawhi Leonard's entire time with the Clippers have overpaid. They overpaid when they acquired Paul George in 2019. They sent 5 first-round picks and the best player on the roster at that time to Oklahoma City in order to get him. They overpaid to get George and Kawhi Leonard some help. They tossed even more first-round picks overboard to land James Harden. Underpaying is not in Ballmer's mindset. As a matter of fact, when it became obvious that the Clippers would not be able to retain George and stay under that terrifying second apron of the salary cap, the Clippers issued a press release where they mentioned the collective bargaining agreement 3 times. And this got me to thinking. Got me to thinking a couple of things, actually. The first is, does the NBA's new salary cap go too far? Are the Clippers merely the canary in the coal mine? You're trying to keep costs down so badly, and yet nobody denies just how much gold the NBA is pulling in. Nobody for a moment thinks that the NBA is in financial straits of any kind. So why would this players union agree to an even more stringent salary cap? Why would you do it? Salary cap? Sure. Okay. Unions tend to argue for lower salary restrictions. What gives? What is it about the NBA's books that made you agree that there needed to be a stronger salary cap? None of that makes any sense. And by the way, the argument that Quinn is making because of this is ass backward. The Clippers did not lowball Paul George. The new NBA salary cap lowballed Steve Ballmer. It lowballed the owner, Steve Ballmer. This is no longer about creating a super team. Keeping Paul George would not have made the Clippers a super team. It's not about creating a super team as much as it was to sustain a roster with some big names who are already parts of the franchise, integral parts of the franchise, I might add, as this franchise moves into a brand new arena. So this is clearly a weakened roster now. After the first day of free agency, you're probably looking at a lineup of Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, probably Norman Powell, Derek Jones Jr., and Ivica Zubac. I don't even think that roster qualifies for the play-in tournament at the end of next regular season. So then you're sitting there saying, well, do they just punt and go rebuild? Well, they won't have a first-round draft pick until 2030. How do you get some picks? Who would trade for James Harden now? Anybody? James Harden has basically he's burned about half of the bridges in the league, considering the way he got ran out of Brooklyn, got ran out of Houston, got ran out of Philadelphia. We don't know his reputation in Oklahoma City, but you get the idea. Who would trade premium assets for James Harden? Possibly Leonard, maybe, but his health has been a thing for years. So there's no way you could possibly stretch this and say this is about lowballing Paul George. These are about rules that are so draconian because look, you can't go to the league and say, listen, this wouldn't be an issue if George stayed under the contract. He opted out. We're not trying to build a super team. We just want to keep a guy who's a cornerstone piece to the franchise. But that's not happening. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say part of this is not of the Clippers' own making. Kawhi Leonard insisted that the Clippers trade for Paul George. And it totally didn't happen. I mean, it totally did happen, but the price was Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Gilgeous-Alexander plus Leonard, that's a threat. Absolutely. The Clippers did decide to send out all those draft picks. But the league won't even let him keep a cornerstone of the franchise. And that's on the NBA. And that's the memo. Meanwhile, elsewhere with the Clippers, Nicholas Batum is returning. The dude was sent to Philadelphia in order to get James Harden in the first place. Batum signed a 2-year deal. Mo Bamba is coming as a backup center, signing a 1-year deal. And the reason that the Clippers now needed a backup center is Mason Plumlee left. He is headed to Phoenix on a 1-year contract. A lot of Clippers opinions in my vacant little mind. Meanwhile, yesterday morning, you might recall, I posted a quick update on NBA free agency. Part of it centered around the market for Klay Thompson. That the Clippers were paying role players and effectively they were backing out of trying to get Klay Thompson. Same for Philly. They paid for a couple of role players. They backed out. That left the Lakers and the team that wound up signing him, Dallas. It is from a sign and trade. The Mavericks are sending, though, just 2 second-round picks to Golden State. Then they turned around and signed Thompson to a 3-year, $50 million deal. Now, there was a claim from the Belcher report that the Lakers offered D'Angelo Russell in a sign and trade for Thompson. Russell played half a season in the Bay before they got tired of his act and sent him to Minnesota. So you can imagine why Golden State said no thanks. Missing out on Thompson is a little bit of a surprise because the Lakers are pretty much his hometown team. His father played for the Showtime Lakers back in the late 80s. Because the Lakers missed out on Thompson, though, the scribes have pivoted immediately and they assume that James is going to get the max deal. James hasn't signed anything yet, so that tells me there's the possibility of another play. I don't know what that play is. The Athletic said that James focused on the Lakers getting 3 players. The Lakers struck out on all 3. That would be Thompson, Harden, of all people, which is a hell of a long shot, and a center with a name so ridiculous I don't want to guess at pronouncing it. ESPN is reporting that James is amenable to a pay cut for DeMar Rosen, the USC grad, a 15-year veteran currently with Chicago. He's terrific from mid-range. He's just not good at threes. So, I don't know. I don't know how much of an upgrade that is. They say social media is not real life, and that's good news for Rob Blake, the GM of the Kings, because if it were, there would be torches surrounding the team headquarters in El Segundo with angry hordes screaming, "Die, heretic, die." In addition to free agency going on in the NBA, it also began in the NHL. And by the looks of things, the on-ice product for the Kings is becoming older and slower. The first slap across the case to Kings fans such as myself came when defenseman Matt Roy, by far the best unrestricted free agent the Kings could have retained, bolted for Washington, a team that did not even make the playoffs last year. 6 years, $34.5 million. Roy was on the Kings' second defensive pairing, and Blake, a Hall of Fame level defenseman, said, "Wait, we now have a spot to fill on defense? Why didn't you say so?" And then he signed an injury-riddled 31-year-old Joel Edmondson to a 4-year deal. Wow. Analysts across the league thought that signing, the length in particular, as one of the dumber moves of the day. Because Edmondson might not even be worth a roster spot, period, let alone filling Roy's spot in the second pairing. But that wasn't enough, of course. Now, I don't think it's fair to give someone who underwent 2 back surgeries when he was with your team, I don't think it's fair to give that guy the middle finger when he leaves as a free agent. But Victor Arvidsson left the Kings to sign with Edmonton, a team that has eliminated the Kings with increasing ease over the last 3 seasons. Now, not everything the Kings did yesterday was a flaming bag of dog turd left on your porch. Warren Fogle comes from Edmonton. He's in his physical prime at 28. He's kind of productive. He scored 20 goals last year. It's not that Fogle is a needle mover. He simply stops the needle from moving further into the red, which is probably good enough at this stage. We've gone into great detail about how Blake's biggest miss as a GM was signing the first hockey player with diplegia, Pierre-Luc Dubois. For the record, that means somebody who can't move his legs. Trading Dubois was not only a sunk cost, but it opened a hole at center. Well, now there's 2 holes at center. Fourth-line center Blake Lizotte is on his way to Pittsburgh, where they are openly excited about the energy he will bring to the Penguins. So there's another hole on the roster there for the Kings to fill. The Kings also added a few players on so-called 2-way contracts, which means that they can go find an apartment in the Inland Empire because they're heading to Ontario. Tyler Madden stays. Riley Walsh comes in from Boston's organization. ESPN believes of all the Chargers rookies, 5th-round cornerback Tarheeb still may have made the biggest leap in offseason training camps. They base this on rave reviews from defensive coordinator Jesse Minter and safety Derwin James. Keep in mind, what we're saying is the biggest leap. People have always expected first-round pick Joe Alt to excel. People are expecting big things from wide receiver Ladd McConkey. Okay? So the biggest leap, Tarheeb Still. If you have watched this channel consistently, you know I have lauded UCLA's basketball offseason. I've just been digging for reviews of USC's offseason, not simply what do they have, we've reported that, but more along the lines of, are they going to be any good? On3.com actually believes the Trojans are a top 25 team. I'm not sure I buy into that. But at least if you're going to tout them that highly, you should have something to back it up. And the scribe didn't. So what I'm trying to tell you is somebody believes in USC pretty good. They've ranked him 22nd. But if you run across that article, be skeptical. He's not building a case. He just basically gave the new lineup, which is all new players. Bryce Pope, St. Thomas, Desmond Claude, Terrence Williams, Josh Cohen. Now, we know Claude had a breakout season in the Big East last year, which is great. Thomas, meanwhile, averaged more than 19 points per game. For a school I've never heard of, though, Pope averaged more than 18. But the vast majority of the newbies are from mid-majors. You have to build a stronger case to tell me how great USC is, or it's just asking me to drink a six-pack of hopium. No offseason in football would be complete without signing a kid with an impossible name to pronounce. And I don't want to come off as clowning Epi Citinelli. Let's try it again. Epi Citinelli. I still came out the same way. I apologize if I mispronounced the name. He's probably a nice young fellow. And UCLA could sure use an edge rusher, which he is. He comes from Rancho Cucamonga, the 57th ranked player in California for the class of 2025. The Bruins have landed 7 recruits this month, and that is impressive. If you consider, by the way, the addition, I should say the last month in terms of days. We're obviously in July. The Bruins have landed 7 recruits within the last 30 some odd days. So, which if you recall the dystopian landscape Chip Kelly left them in, give Deshaun Foster credit. UCLA has at least a top 30 recruiting class. But yeah, we had a lot to talk about today. Let me know what you think in the comments thread. Are you upset with Steve Ballmer or upset with the NBA that the Clippers no longer have Paul George? Are you okay with the possibility of settling for DeMar DeRozan on the Lakers roster? And if you enjoyed the content, don't forget to subscribe to Faithful Angelenos. We're talking LA sports every single day here. Thank you for watching. I'm James. We'll be back tomorrow. Faithful Angelenos is a Kian Cortell Queso production. Take care.